Well, hello there. Glad you could make it. Happy to see that you're still interested in the story. Well, as you can see, we still have quite a bit to go. Lots of pages to read through. But anyways, I suppose the quicker we get to it, the faster you'll hear about it. Let's get a drink first, though. Vincent!
Yeah,
Vincent!
boss. Hang on. I gotta remember to respond to PT Pez Head. Yeah, boss. Here. What's going on? I'm right here.
Vincent, would you do me the favor? Could you get us some... Oh, I'm sorry. Water for him, mead for me, please. Thanks, Vincent. I appreciate it. So, where were we? Oh, the story. And it started with them heading south. Yes, they are heading south.
When Baldwin finally falls back to sleep, it is almost dawn. So when he is shaken awake, it feels like he just closed his eyes.
Is it morning already? Yes. Though it'll be some time before we head south, as Dan and I must look for a trail left by the creature.
We can't let it reach Talon.
Yes. But it has had the night to travel, and be that much ahead of us. If you pray to a god, then pray that it sleeps during the daylight, or at the very least hides from the sun.
As Baldwin gets out of his bedroll, he turns towards Talon and prays to the gods that Sylvia and Byron are safe. Within a quarter hour, Tanna and Elrin are jogging out of camp, with Elrin calling over his shoulder.
Make sure the horses are ready. We will try to be quick.
And in short order, Baldwin has the horses saddled and packed. After another quarter hour, he is pacing, looking out for their return. But there is no sign. So, to make use of his time, he takes out Jacob's knife to sharpen, the hunting blade, the one which saved his life. Until now, he hadn't really thought about it, perhaps avoiding reliving the night. As he turns the blade over in his hand, he realizes it is a little bigger than a regular hunting knife. And the handle, it is a bit more ornate than he is used to. It is only when reaching for a stone to sharpen he sees blood. Did he nick himself? Sure enough, there it is, a thin cut along his thumb. Perhaps the blade need not be sharpened after all. Running steps draw Baldwin to look up, and seeing the elves approach, he heads towards them.
Well?
Tanna gestures with her hands. She mentions that they have found the tracks and should be easy to follow. As one, the three each climb onto their respective horses, with Elrin leading the way, galloping into the hills.
How hard was it to find its tracks?
Not hard, but not easy either. The creatures are heading in a straight line to Talon, and instead of traveling around the hills, they're going up and over.
Creatures? How many tracks did Tanna and you find?
3. Though 2 sets seem heavier than the third. Tanna thinks they bear riders.
Baldwin is a bit confused. He has known horses to bear orcs, though at great costs to their lives. And in the territory wars, he saw firsthand the very large boars that carried the dwarves into battle. Though, what Elrin is describing, this is obviously not a boar or a horse they're trailing after.
What manner of creature are we following?
Tanna gestures the word lizard. Baldwin quickly looks to Elrin, and then back to Tanna.
You said lizard. Like a really big lizard? Big enough they can carry something?
Or someone.
They ride for almost a half an hour, keeping a pace so that Jasper can keep up with the horses. At some point, Elrin directs his horse in a way that can only mean they have refound the tracks. As they travel south, every so often Tanna points to the creature's prints, going over the hills instead of around them. Most of the time, Baldwin can only look here and there, not spotting a claw mark until there is dust or remnants of mud. Otherwise, he is amazed at how they're able to keep track. Continuing on through lunch, the trio only stopped for moments, letting Jasper and the horses regain their breath and for water. It is during one of these rests that Baldwin queries.
I have not been this far north of Talon. How much longer?
Elrin motions with his hands to Tanna, and she responds in kind. Maybe an hour before sunset. Elrin adds,
Perhaps sooner. If we can push the horses a bit more, yes?
Baldwin nods his approval and begins to lead his horse on when he notices Jasper panting heavily. Without thought, Baldwin jumps off his horse, heads towards the dog, and scoops him up. But then he sticks him into the saddlebags and says, "Stay." Then, climbing back onto the horse, calls out,
What are we waiting for?
and so it is with the sun marching towards sunset when the group reaches the boundaries of Baldwin's farm. They pause on their horses, Tanna and Elvin looking to Baldwin.
Something shows on your face. What is it?
Not sure. Nothing appears out of place, but it feels wrong.
Baldwin motions his horse ahead with the elves in tow. As they approach the back of the barn, Baldwin feels edgy, but as they ride to the front, the orange barn cat walks around the corner with a mouse in its mouth. Arching its back and hissing at the horses, it drops its prey, which scampers between a crack in the barn walls. Shaking his head at his premature folly, Baldwin lets the horse continue around to the front. But what awaits is what he feared. As the three turn the corner, a mutilated cow lays outstretched between the barn doors, its innards spilled out at length towards the house. A no escapes Baldwin's lips as he slides off the horse into a run towards the house. Tanna and Elvin are not far behind. As they approach the house, all can see the front doors open and claw marks are on the outside of the doorframe. Baldwin is calling out Sylvia's and Byron's name as he continues inward. Elvin yells out,
Baldwin, wait! Wait for us!
but fear rules Baldwin's mind as he pushes through the door, then stops short. Elrond almost topples over him, surprised at the sudden stop. Tanna, catching up, looks over Elrond's shoulder, and all bear witness to the utter chaos within, as everything that can be broken is. The kitchen table is in pieces, along with the chairs. All of the pottery that Sylvia and her mother had made is destroyed. Cabinet doors ripped off and are strewn about. But what makes Baldwin fall to his knees is the blood. It covers everything, including a carved horse Baldwin made for Byron that is laying in the center of the room. He reaches for it through blurred eyes, but it's just out of reach. Elrond says something to Tanna, but Baldwin cannot hear as he is mumbling words over and over again. Elrond tries to lift Baldwin. He tries to console him, but hard-racking sobs escape Baldwin, and Elrond finds himself slipping to the knees and wrapping his arms around him. Time untold passes, and Baldwin finds himself being gently shaken,
Baldwin,
rubbing his eyes,
Baldwin.
trying to see. He is almost brought back to despair as the scene unfolds again in front of him. Turning Baldwin to face him, Elrond speaks directly into his face.
Baldwin, listen, here's what I have to say. Tanna found tracks continuing south, and since there is no bodies, perhaps, just perhaps, they may still be alive. Maybe these creatures search for more victims.
Baldwin stares vacantly at Elrond.
Baldwin, your family may still be alive, but we must hurry if we are to catch up. They live? We know not, but if there is a chance, we must act now.
Elrond tries to pull Baldwin up, but it is difficult, as Baldwin is turning his head and body, looking all around, murmuring the whole time.
They live.
Finally,
They live.
Elrond gets him to stand up,
They live.
and he turns him away, facing the outdoor. Tears still streaming down Baldwin's face. Tanna sadly approaches, her hands reaching for his face.
Sylvia?
Tanna makes a unique sound with her mouth, and a glow envelopes her hands, which encompasses Baldwin's head. In his mind, he hears an angel's voice, a voice that calls itself Tanna.
Baldwin, your family needs you. We need you. Come. Come with us, and let's save your wife and child.
Warmth floods through him, from his head down to his toes, and with it comes clarity.
For the briefest of moments, Baldwin is transported to a field of green, with sunlight bathing him in its glow, and Tanna standing right in front of him.
Where are we?
I do not know. This is your mine. Perhaps a place you have been before.
Baldwin looks around, bewildered, not recognizing anything.
Baldwin, we do not have much time if we are to save your family.
They are alive?
We do not know, but I myself would chase the creature down to find out. Would you not, too?
Baldwin just stares, but then slowly starts to nod. And with that, he is back on the porch with Elrin holding him and Tanna walking away.
Are you okay? Can you ride?
Baldwin can only nod, drops leaving his face and hitting the porch floor. If he were to talk now, he would be yelling. Anger is now filling in where grief once stood. Elrin has now started to jog back to the horses, and Baldwin forces himself not to look back. So he too jogs back to the horse. And Jasper is whining. Whispering sorry to the dog, Baldwin reaches for him and takes him out and puts him back onto the ground.
Tanna says the tracks head directly south. Is there a farm there by chance, or do we go right through the town?
Marcus's farm. It's the last one before you reach Talon Center. He has 3 boys, 1 older and 2 younger. His wife passed when their 3rd son was born. It'll be dark when we get there.
Yes, but if we prepare and not overreact, not run in blind, then we can hopefully save everyone.
Baldwin looks to Tanna and Elrin, nodding grimly, and before Elrin climbs onto his horse, he reaches into one of the saddlebags and pulls out a scabbard with sword, handing it to Baldwin.
I not know why, but I sense that you can handle this, yes?
One last time.
Elrin gives almost an imperceptible nod, then climbs onto his horse with Tanna starting to gallop towards Marcus' farm and Jasper running along. As they ride, darkness prevails, but only for a short time, as the full moon begins its journey, and luckily provides them a vantage for sight, at least for the elves. As they approach Marcus's house, Baldwin motions, as light can be seen streaming out of the only 2 windows in the front. In the moonlight, the 2 elves nod with Elrin pointing to the back of the house. Together, all 3 get off the horse, with Baldwin kneeling to Jasper and whispering, "Stay."
Stay.
As Baldwin stands back up, he straps on the scabbard and notices Elrin doing the same, while Tanna belts 2 dirks. Then, with Tanna in the lead, they crouch low, keeping to the tall corn stalks, and head towards the back of the house, with the front facing south. When they reach the far corner, they stop and listen, each holding their breath to pull that much more from the air. But there's just silence.
What do we do now?
Tanna replies with her hands that she will go and check, peeking into one of the windows. Everyone nods, and off she goes, staying low and close to the building. Painful minutes go by, with Baldwin fingering the hilt of his borrowed sword.
What is taking her so long?
Have patience.
A minute later, Tanna reappears, gesturing and pointing that the house is empty, but noises are coming from the barn. They all turn to look. From the back of the house, the barn lies to their left, almost 100 feet away. The front is pointing west, and they can see the doors are closed. Elrin motions that they should follow him, and he heads east to the back side of the barn. There they find the back barn doors closed, but a crack remains, sufficient enough to peer in. Silently approaching the door, they bear witness to a horrific scene. One of Marcus's sons is strung up with too many cuts across his body, and his intestines are laying at his feet. Marcus is tied, standing up to a pole, opposite not that of a creature, but of a female elf, though her skin is quite dark. She is grabbing Marcus's face and forcing him to look at his dead son. The 2 younger boys are crying silently at his feet. Baldwin begins to speak, but then stops, and using his hands, asks, "Who is that elf?" Tanna is first to reply, saying, "A follower of the underworld queen. They worship and follow the Jorogomo too." Baldwin turns back, trying to see more, hoping to get a glimpse of Sylvia and Byron. Yet, as hard as he tries, they are nowhere to be seen. Just then, another dark elf steps into view and grabs one of the younger boys. Immediately, Marcus starts yelling, and the two boys start screaming, reaching for each other. Slapping the boy hard across the face, she drags him to the pole and practically lifts him up off his feet as she reaches for bindings to strap him against his dead brother's body. Baldwin is shaking in rage. He sees Marcus's son, but he also sees Byron. Barely audible, he says, "Byron?" and a growl escapes his lips.
No.
All right. Unfortunately, I think we have to end it right there. Why? Oh, well, I have another appointment. I know. In the evening time. I know. Don't ask me why. It always ends up being in the evening time, but it is. Rest assured, we will get through the story. You just need to be here for the next chapter. Anyways, I have to get ready for it. Until then, you be safe. All right? I'll see you then.